Hey there guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So one question that I'm asked more than anything besides how I do my brows is often how I do my foundation and how I get such a flawless complexion. And it's really kind of simple actually. While I do have great genetics, thanks mom and dad, I also take really good care of my skin. I have a very strict and easy skincare routine, which I am more than happy to share with you guys if you are ever interested in that. But besides that, I also have many tips and tricks that I have found along the way of me doing makeup for so many years, and I found certain ones that work particularly for me, especially for oilier skin type. I did a video like this a couple years ago and I've definitely learned a lot more things since then, and I really want to share them with you guys, specifically for the viewers who do have those more oilier to problematic skin types. That's the kind of skin type I have. I have a very oily T-zone with dry, dehydrated patches on my cheeks. So typically, my foundation wears off very quickly on my nose. If you're a frequent viewer of my channel and watch many of my foundation first impressions, you know that I'm very critical on foundations, especially when ones wear off on my nose and chin, because I literally have the skin of a 12-year-old boy going through puberty. It's disgusting. So even though I do have a strict skincare regimen, I often get really oily skin. It feels like bacon grease, like I often say, and I have rather large pores and certain fine lines that I'm always wanting to conceal and blur. So those are things that I like to factor in when I am doing my foundation and I'm testing out new foundations. And after many years of living in a hot and humid climate, I have learned so many ways to not only blur your pores, keep luminosity in your skin without looking too matte, but also how to have flawless foundation without looking like you're covered in bacon grease by the end of the day. But do not fret, my dry skin folks. I do have a couple of tips and tricks in store mixed in for you guys today as well too, so do not worry about that. I got you guys covered as well. Meanwhile, I would also love to know what some of your tips and tricks are for your foundation routine. Let me know in the comments down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure you guys go ahead and give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe for future videos. Also hit the notification bell so you guys are notified when I do upload. I'm uploading twice a week, so make sure you guys are notified when I do upload and you don't have to wait around on YouTube for it to pop into your subscription feed like an hour later. I know YouTube's been really bad about that lately, so I want to make sure you guys are getting my videos on time, so make sure you guys had that little bell icon clicked. So without further ado, if you guys are excited to see what kind of tips and tricks I have in store for you guys today, let's go ahead and dive right on it. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about my personal skin type before we jump in to this tutorial and tips and tricks and all that, because skincare is the most important part, I believe, of this entire thing. If your skin's not good, your makeup's not gonna look good, and I kind of just live by that motto. So I typically have an oilier skin type, so I tend to go for more matter foundations. That way my oil is controlled throughout the day, but you can also use a lot of these products and add shine to them if you do have dry skin. So that is something to keep in mind throughout this entire video. But as far as skincare, I always exfoliate and moisturize in the morning. I don't exfoliate every day, but almost every other day I do, just because I don't want any texture, I don't want any dry spots on my skin. And my personal favorite exfoliator lately has been from Henriksen. It is the Pore Balance Facial Sauna Scrub. I love using this in the shower because it's almost like a spa feeling. The way it smells, it's very invigorating and it really wakes me up. This one is perfect for oily and problematic skin. He does have another one in his line that is more geared towards dry and normal skin. It's their walnut scrub, so check that one out if you do have dry skin. But as far as moisturizing today, I did use the Belif Aqua Bomb. This is my favorite moisturizer hands down. A gel water-based moisturizer. It's going to be better for your oilier skin types because it's not going to cause you to get oily throughout the day and overproduce. It's really going to hydrate your skin and only do that. However, they do have one that's the moisturizing balm that is better for normal to dry skin because it is going to give you that extra oil that you need in your hydration. So now that we have skincare out of the way, I know that's kind of a clunky part of this entire thing and a lot of people really get confused when it comes to skincare. So if you would love for me to go in depth with my skincare routine, I would love to do that. So let me know in the comments down below if that's something you want to see from me in the future. So now getting into this, now that I've gone ahead and moisturized my skin, I'm going to go in with my primer. And if you guys know me, I love the Milk Blur Stick Primer. This is a silicone and dimethicone free primer, but it is almost has the same texture as a silicone primer in the fact that it has micro encapsulated powders in it that are going to burst onto your face and really fill in all those pores, really smooth out the skin. And I'm kind of just applying this where I really need it. So right here in the center of the face where I have most of my pores at, around my mouth where I have some fine lines. And then I'm going to take a little bit here on my forehead just because for some reason I find that my forehead it's not pores, it's just, it has a lot of texture that needs to be smoothed out. And if I don't put it up there, it really is accentuated with my foundation. That's the last thing I want. And then taking some up here on my cheekbone where I know that highlighter is going to be, and I don't want my pores accentuated with that. Just kind of putting it wherever you feel like you are your largest at with your pores. I don't really put so much down here on my lower cheek or anything like that. So immediately you're gonna notice how smooth out your skin is gonna appear. It's gonna look like it has almost a filter across it, which is what I love about it. And sometimes I'll even just wear this by itself, be out the door, put on some mascara and a little bit of brow gel, and that's it. So now this is the part where I think is my biggest tip and trick. If you take anything from this video, this is the one that I want you to take away from it. Now, I actually learned this from Nakia Joy. She's the one who mentioned it in a video a long time ago. I will try to leave a link for it down below if I can find it. I don't know if she's the original creator behind this idea, but I did see her mention it, and I kind of want to pass it along to you guys, and I've talked about this many times before. My number one trick for getting foundation to stay a long time, especially on my nose where I feel like it tends to break up the absolute most, is taking my MAC Painterly paint pot. Now, you can take really any eye primer or any paint pot from MAC that matches your skin tone and do this with. I personally just like Painterly, and I personally like using my paint pot for my primer. It's really kind of ingenious to put this on your nose and in areas that you feel like you get the oiliest at, because that's what you do for eyeshadow. You put eye primer on your eyelids when they're really oily so the eyeshadow can stay on longer. Why would you not do that for a foundation? Don't know why. I was not the first one to think of this. So I'm just taking a little bit on my finger, kind of warming it up in the pot. And I'm just going to cover my nose with the paint pot. I kind of do like a very thin layer. I don't want too much on my nose. I don't want it to be too thick. And I'm kind of smoothing it out, really pressing it into the skin, not really just slapping it on. I'm really working it in. And you can even take it up here on the side of the bridges of your nose to help if you wear glasses or anything like that. Like, especially, I know me, when I wear sunglasses, my foundation is like the first place to wear off. It's right there where my sunglasses hit me. But if you feel like you have a really oily chin, put some on there. If you feel like you really have a really oily forehead lines right here, put some right there. It's really gonna help just increase longevity. I've noticed such a difference. I've gotten such a greater longevity out of most of my foundations, especially ones that are not usually gonna give me that longevity. This has definitely helped and really prolonged the wear of my foundation throughout the day. So that is my number one trick. If you guys take anything from this video, take that one home to the bank. So now I'm gonna go ahead and move on to foundation. And one thing that I always like to keep in mind is whatever primer you're using, make sure that your foundation is the exact same formulation. So if you're using a water-based foundation, use a water-based primer. Don't mix oil and primer because it's not going to really sit well. Silicone is almost the exception, but I always like to pair a silicone foundation with a silicone primer. I never want to pair with anything else, but silicone primers can work with a lot of other foundations as well. And even though the Milk primer is not silicone, it's silicone free, you still have those powders in it that are going to be paired best with a silicone foundation. So I'm going to be using the NARS Natural Radiant Foundation. I know that I have talked a ton about this foundation recently here on my channel, and it's quickly become one of my favorites because it is a silicone base. It's going to blur all those pores. It's really going to help increase the longevity of my foundation, give me that overall flawless finish. And since it does have that natural radiance, it's going to look very natural like my skin. It's going to have a demi-matte finish, which is my favorite because it's not going to be too matte where it looks very dry and cakey, but it's not going to be too dewy where I feel like I'm an oil slick. It's kind of happy medium, and then you get a medium to full coverage with it, so I can easily build it up. So I just shake this up a little bit, and I'm also wearing the shade Mont Blanc Light 2, and I like to apply this foundation with a sponge. You can use a brush with it. I have. Typically, I would use my Sigma F80 brush. This is a flat kabuki brush. The reason I like this brush is because it's very dense, and you can really smooth out the foundation and buff it out really easily without getting any streaks. And I love how dense it is, like I said, because you're going to get more coverage with it. It's not going to eat up all your foundation. But instead, I'm going to be using a sponge because I really like having that kind of dewy look to it that a sponge will give it. And I like using the Fenty Beauty sponge. This is my favorite one. I love it more than the Beauty Blender just because of the texture of it, and I love the shape of it as well. I feel like it's really nice and easy to apply with. And I'm really just pressing it in and working it into the skin. And I'm going to drag it down my jawline as well too, so that we have a consistent color. It's going to match my neck perfectly. Like, this is one of my perfect shades I've ever had. The only thing about this sponge is that it doesn't have a tip. It's the only thing I don't like about it, because getting around my brows is so hard. So immediately you can already tell a difference in the evenness of my skin, how smooth out it is, and how it just looks very fluid. You don't see a lot of my freckles showing through, which I know a lot of people love to show freckles through. Some people do especially, but I personally, I don't, because it just makes my skin look so uneven. You can really tell that I have any because I have so much redness in my cheeks. And the fact that I have so many, it just clusters together and makes for a really uneven, blotchy skin tone. And I'm not a fan of that. I just, you know, want to look very perfect and even. So that's why I like using more fuller coverage foundations like this. And this is just with one layer. You get a really nice tie medium coverage with it. I don't really need to go back in with the second layer. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this side of my face. So I know I forgot to bring this up at the beginning of the video and I regret it now. I just thought of this, but the reason I do my eyebrows and my eye makeup before I do my foundation is because I don't want any fallout getting on my cheeks. I know some people will still do it and kind of put extra powder underneath my eyes, but I just really hate that look of that. I just feel like it looks too cakey and heavy. So I just opt to do my eye makeup and eyebrows beforehand. It's also great for whenever you're doing wing liner because you can easily go in with a makeup wipe and clean it up. Or if you're doing your eyebrows and you really need to polish them up, it's really quick and easy. Just take a Q-tip and wipe them up. So if you guys notice, I didn't put that much foundation right beneath my eyes because I am going to be going in with my Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. This is already a heavy enough concealer and I don't want to put too much product underneath my eyes and cause any extra creasing that doesn't need to be there. So now that we're looking like a ghost and we have our foundation on, I'm going to bring some dimension back into the skin and I'm going to go with my concealer really quickly. I'm going to take some on my forehead, on the bridge of my nose, and then a little bit on my chin and Cupid's bow. You definitely do not have to do as much as I do, but I'm just really gonna pat it in place right here in this one area on my nose and then Cupid's bow and chin. I try not to put too much product on my chin because I know that I had the chin of a 12-year-old boy, so it's gonna get really oily really quickly and I don't want it to break down and look very cakey and patchy. So I'm gonna hold off on doing my under eyes really quickly because I'm gonna go in with a cream bronzer. Now I like to use a cream bronzer when I'm using more fuller coverage foundations because I don't want to put too much powder on top of all this. I really want to make sure that this is gonna set evenly and set beautifully and we're not caking too much powders on after this. So I'm gonna take the Milk Makeup Baked Bronzer and I'm going to just do a little bit on my forehead. And this is just going to help the powders and everything going smoothly, look evenly since you're going to be underneath all that. And then I'm going to take the end of my beauty sponge and just kind of work this back into the hairline. Now, if you use cream bronzer and you want to, you're more than welcome to set it with a bronzer if you want. But I do this just because when I put powder on, I just don't want it to look cakey. I don't want like I'm wearing a lot of powder and this is going to shine through underneath it all and look very natural, like I have a natural tan, even though that's far from the truth. Okay, so now that we're looking more like a human and less like a boiled egg, I'm going to go back with my Tarte Shape Tape and just take some underneath my eyes. And I'm just doing like one sweepy motion like that. And I'm just going to do like a small V shape. I know I do so much in comparison to other beauty bloggers, but this is just my method. I know I look like insane right now. And I'm going to take my sponge, press it in. I love this Fenty sponge so much, but for doing your under eyes, it is ungodly awful. Like, it's so hard to get in there, but I'm just way too lazy to get a beauty blender. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and set my under eyes with my RCMA No Color Powder. I specifically like this powder because there really is no color to it. You're not going to get any flashback with it. You're not going to get any white cast either. It's literally no color. And on top of that, it's a really finely milled powder as well. So it's really going to limit any creasing that I get on my under eyes, and especially around my mouth too, where I tend to have small laugh lines at. So you can use a brush with this, but I'm going to put some on a beauty blender. This is just a damp beauty blender. And this beauty blender is not really that wet either because you don't want too much water around the powder and then causing it to look a little bit heavier and sticking to certain places underneath the eyes. My biggest advice I will say, and this is why I use 2 separate sponges, is to really make sure that your under eye is completely crease free. Really try your best to make sure that there aren't any creases underneath the eyes, because if you set it with that powder, it's immediately going to set those creases in place, and honey, that's the last thing we want. We ain't trying to look like the Crypt Keeper up in here. So when it comes to setting the rest of the face, I will typically use a different powder. I will usually use a foundation powder to set the rest of my face because I don't really love going in with translucent powders on my entire skin because I feel like it just looks really dry. It just really looks very cakey and I don't really like the look of it. So I typically will use either a loose powder that has a tint to it or a foundation powder. Today I'm going to be using the Giorgio Luminous Silk Powder. I know this is very expensive, but I really love this look that it gives to my skin. It sets the foundation beautifully, but without diminishing any luminosity that I already have with it. And the way I set my foundation is really kind of precise because I don't want to put too much powder on my skin. So I'm going to take my Real Techniques setting brush and I'm just going to take a little bit of the powder and I'm kind of just going to press it in right here around my nose where I have my largest pores in, because I'm going to really press that powder into the skin, making sure that it's not too noticeable. And I have found by doing this, it will give a very airbrushed and soft look to the skin in this area, and it's not going to allow the powder to accentuate my pores. So instead of taking a large powder brush like this that's going to gently just dust over the skin, I'm really working it in there. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and set the rest of my face, and I'm actually gonna take my damp beauty blender that we used to set under the eyes and go in with the rest of the powder, kind of just coat it really well, and then just press it into the skin. Now this is gonna give much more layer and more coverage than using a powder brush would, but it's not gonna look heavy and I don't have to worry about pressing it into my pores too much. It's just gonna give a nice layer of it and really allow it to sink into the skin. It's kind of like my method with doing this is like allowing my products to really sink into the skin and become one instead of having all these layers and it looking cakey and dry and textured. And I will say I would do the exact same thing if I was using a loose powder like my Maybelline Fit Me powder. I would do the exact same method. I would layer it up on a sponge like this and then press it into the skin. I just really like the look it gives because it kind of just gives that airbrush look to it. And if you are using a more lighter coverage foundation, this is a great way to get that extra boost of coverage. Now that I finished off the rest of my base, I went ahead and finished my eyes off so I didn't look like a complete psychopath for the rest of the video. But now I'm going to go in and do my contouring, my bronzer, my blush, and highlight, all the good stuff about a complexion base. So starting off, I'm going to take my Charlotte Tilbury Filmstar Bronze and Glow, and I'm going to go with the Morphe M530, and I'm going to use this to contour my cheekbones. I love using this powder because it's a really nice, not cool toned, but not too warm toned contouring shade. You can even use it to bronze for the fairer skin types. So I'm going to just take this right there on my cheekbones and on my forehead. And I particularly love using a bigger brush like this because it allows for a more kind of blown out contour. It's not so precise and dense since it does have a wider tip to it than more traditional contouring brushes. It's also real hair instead of synthetic, so it's going to eat up a little bit more powder, which is kind of good for contouring because then you're not going to have really contrasting and harsh shadows on the skin. Always take some down here on the chin to really accentuate that jawline, because trust me, we try to minimize as many double chins as we can. And then on a smaller brush, this is the Sigma Tapered Blending E35 brush. I'm gonna take this on my nose and to really just define it and contour it. I'm always down for skin of your nose, no matter what the occasion is. And again, you can tell when I'm contouring, I use these more real hair brushes because then I'm not going to pick up as much powder. And with a synthetic brush, you're going to have a lot more powder because it's not going to eat it up. Whereas using a brush like this, it's going to allow your powders to kind of be eaten up a little bit more, which for contouring, I think is a better thing because then you're not going to have too heavy of a contour. And then before I move into highlighter, I'm going to quickly take my Sigma F50 brush and go in with the Hoola Lite, or what I have left of it, and use that really quickly to bronze the skin. Even though we already went ahead and used the milk bronzer, I'm going to add just a little bit more warmth to it since I feel like a little bit did get hidden from the Giorgio powder. And using a duo fiber brush like this is going to allow for you to have a lighter bronze as well too. You're not going to pick up as much powder. And one reason that I keep mentioning that I like to use brushes like this one or like real hair brushes, besides the fact that it picks up less powder, it just allows you for you to have more control on how much color you're depositing onto your skin. When you go with very fluffy brushes like this, you're not going to get as much control as you want. When you go in with smaller brushes or real hair brushes or duo fiber brushes, you're going to have more control over what you're putting on your skin. It's not going to go everywhere. You're going to get more precision with it. You're going to get as much color as you want with it. So that's kind of the method to my madness. So we bronzed the skin, we brought in life back to it. Now this is kind of one unnecessary step. It's kind of like my princess step, I like to say, when it comes to really getting that flawless skin. Now that we have dimension back in, I'm going to add some luminosity back to it. Before we go in with highlighter, I really like to go in with the Hourglass Mood Light Ambient Lighting Powder. This one has a blush tone to it, so this is going to help brighten the skin and even out any yellowness that we have going on, and really just give a little bit of oomph and luminosity back into it. So I like to take this on my Real Techniques Duo Fiber Face Brush, and I'm just going to take a little bit of it and just kind of sweep it right here on the cheekbones, just where I want to have a natural glow. Now, this is by no means doing my highlighting or blush. This is just going to smooth out the skin and make it look very flawless. And what I find is that this powder will just fill in any fine lines that we have. If we may have missed something with the regular powders that we were using earlier, this is what's going to help. And I like using the Duo Fiber brush again just to pick up as minimal powder as I want, because I don't want to go too heavy with this, since it does have that pink tone to it, but that is mainly just to color correct and kind of brighten the skin where it could be really yellow. I know Alyssa Ashley kind of does the same thing, but she uses the Sephora Collection Micro Smooth Powder. This is essentially the kind of the same step. Okay, so now we're gonna move back into highlighting, and this is where I like to get a little bit of a mixologist, and I'm gonna do 2 highlighters, and I know that could sound like a lot. You can more than welcome to just use one, but I'm gonna first go back into my Charlotte Tilbury Filmstar Bronze and Glow, and I'm gonna take my Anastasia A23 brush. This is my more natural looking highlight. Now, I know on camera it's gonna pick up like a heavy glow, but in person it's a lot more subtle and soft. With these studio lights hitting, it is gonna look more intense. And just doing it in very nice swirling motions. I'm not really doing any kind of harsh streaks because I don't want a line of highlighter on my skin, and I'm just kind of backing it up into a C shape right here. Now, for the big guns. This is the Colourpop Super Shock Highlighter in the shade Flexitarian. Just look at that blinding glow right there. This one, I'm going to go in very lightly, and I'm taking the same brush, and I'm just going to hit this in the important parts. So right back here on top of the cheekbones. I mean, do you see that blinding highlight? It's pretty blinding. That's why I said I'm being very careful. This is also why we've used so many smoothing products, because when I'm using a highlighter this intense, it is going to accentuate any pore I have, which is why I kind of brought the blur stick back in this general direction, so I wouldn't have to worry about accentuating too many pores. If you want NASA to find you, this is the one you need to go for. And then I'm going to take a more precise brush. This is actually an e.l.f. eyeshadow brush, and I'm going to take this and just go in a little bit right here on the tip of my nose, not too much. And then I'm going to take this right here on the inner corner of my eye. And I just love this highlighter because it doesn't have that high of a base color. So when you're not facing the light, you really don't have any kind of gray cast or any color cast going on your cheeks. When the light hits it, bam. Right there, you get nice lighting. And then finally, for blush, I always had to go back in with blush. This is totally optional, but I like to give a little bit of redness back into my cheeks, just a little bit, because then it will match the rest of my skin. And I'm gonna go in with the Marc Jacobs Air blushes. These are some of my favorite blushes. They have been for such a long time now. This is in the shade Kink and Kisses. And I'm gonna take my MAC 168 angled brush and just dust a little bit of this, tap of any excess, and just hit it right there, and blend it back into the highlighter and bronzer. With my face shape, the last thing you want to do is put it right here on the apples of your cheeks. If you have a more square face, then you can. But oval and rounder faces, need to put it right back here and blend it into the highlighter and bronzer. Alrighty, so I've already gone ahead and I finished off my eyes and my lips. We got everything done, and now for the last and final step, I'm going to be going in with some setting spray. You can use any setting spray that's custom to your skin type. I'm going to be using the Kat Von D Lock-It setting spray. This is just a really great tip to do to really ensure you're going to get that longevity out of your foundation. It's not going to do anything as far as kind of making you look flawless, except for the fact that you're just going to get a longer wear out of your foundation, which everybody obviously wants. Also, another thing that I really love about setting sprays is I feel like if you wear too much powder, you went too heavy on it, a setting spray is going to be able to absorb that excess powder, so it's not going to look dry and cakey. And some people like to do it as they go along, but I personally just love to do it after I have finished everything, just to really set and like all the powders in place so nothing's going anywhere. Alrighty guys, so that does it for today's video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it and you're walking away with some great tips in mind. Let me know in the comments down below, what are some of your favorite tips and tricks that you have when it comes to applying your foundation? I would love to know. Let's start a little discussion down in the comments down below. And while you're at it, make sure you guys go ahead and give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe for future videos. Also hit that notification bell so you're notified when I do upload. Also make sure you guys head on over and check out all my social media links. They're going to be located right up here. Go on over and say hi, what's up? And I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will catch you guys later. Bye-bye!